Nestled in the serene and picturesque valleys of rural Utah, a seemingly perfect life concealed a chilling secret. It was shattered by a scandal so dark that it would haunt the area residents for the past couple of years. Kouri Richins was a beloved father and a local entrepreneur who was found dead under suspicious circumstances in a little Utah town just east of Park City, Utah. His once vibrant life was extinguished in an instant. Whispers of foul play echoed throughout the town as the investigation began to unfold, and it started to reveal a shocking revelation that Kouri Richins, Eric's devoted wife, stood accused of orchestrating his demise with a deadly fentanyl concoction. You know, it's a place where trust and loyalty are the bedrock of existence for these little townspeople, and they were left grappling with an unthinkable question. If these accusations are true, what is it that drives someone to murder the person that they once vowed to love and cherish? They were an example of a successful, well-off, and frankly happy American couple. Eric ran a contracting business. He was a dedicated dad who taught his three boys how to live, how to play, and he even taught them how to work. He was very good to the boys, and it appears that he was good to his wife, Kouri, at least publicly. Kouri Richins was a real estate agent who would buy, fix up, and then flip homes. She was smart by all accounts, and she knew how to connect with people. But from her family and close friends, she was in love with Eric. She was in love with her boys and her family life. But many suggest they were in the best place in their marriage and the best place that it ever had been at the time in which Eric died. You know, I've often talked about public, private, and secret personas, and this might be a really good time to review them. We all have personas. So let's talk about the public persona for just a moment. It could be likened unto my persona right now, where I'm in front of you. I'm trying to put my best foot forward. In some cases, it's when we're trying to get people to look at us favorably, to like us. This is our public persona. We're really putting everything we can forward to make ourselves look good to others. Then we have this private persona. This is the place that usually those that are closest to us really only get to see. It might be where a spouse kind of learns about your buttons that can be pushed when you really get angry, or something that really sets you off or sends you into depression or into frustration and yelling. These are the places where we often see the warts that others have. But again, it's kind of kept in a private setting and not revealed in a public setting. And rarely is it seen anywhere else. But then when we talk about criminal behavior, I want to just kind of talk about the other persona that we all have, and that is our secret persona. This is the side of us where the kind of the Tasmanian devil works away. It may be the place where an inappropriate thought comes into our mind. And because we're hopefully pretty normal people, we check and put those thoughts in check and push them aside, where a criminal will allow those secret thoughts to germinate and commit crime. And all the evidence is suggesting that that's exactly what happened on March 4th, 2022, when Kouri Richins called 911 and reported that her husband, Eric Richins, was unresponsive in their bed. Now, he was found dead, and his death was ultimately determined to be caused by a fentanyl overdose, and then later as a result of murder. A year after his death, Kouri Richins appeared on a local news channel touting a new children's book about grief that she had written. It was titled, "Are You With Me?" She says she wrote the book to help her children cope with the loss of their father. And while some people were rallying around her and praising her efforts and touting this new book, behind the scenes, law enforcement investigators were preparing to charge her with murder. A month after that televised appearance, police officers arrested Kouri Richins, and they charged her with the murder of her husband, alleging that she poisoned Eric with a lethal dose of fentanyl. Now, additional charges also related to drug possession and drug distribution were filed at the same time. And now, more than a year into this thing, and all of these court wranglings, including a change of defense, this thing kind of has slowed to a crawl, to say the best. In June of 2023, prosecutors released court documents that revealed that Eric had expressed concerns to his friends and family, warning them that if something happened to him, he believed that Kouri was trying to kill him. Now, the prosecution presented evidence that included communications and financial records that supported their claim that Kouri was after the money, including a life insurance policy and control over all of Eric's real estate investments and the couple's joint investments. In the spring of 2024, Richins' defense attorney petitioned the court to remove her from Richins' case because of a conflict of interest. Well, they had a hearing, and after that hearing, the judge agreed and gave Richins more time to prepare her defense moving forward to a trial that now was scheduled to late June and has been moved beyond that. Before Eric's death, he'd suffered what a couple of people describe as near-death experiences. All of these surrounding Kouri and are part of this case that the prosecution is putting against her. Once, on an overseas trip where they had been traveling, he had a severe reaction to a drink that he was given. And then that was really problematic. But then later, Kouri provided him with a sandwich that almost killed him. That's when he started telling people that he was concerned that she might actually be trying to kill him. Well, behind the scenes, other shady things were going on with the couple's finances. They were arguing over expensive pieces of property that Kouri was trying to flip in her business, and Eric was resisting her desire to have the access to their joint accounts. She was manipulating life insurance policies behind the scenes, according to prosecutors, and manipulating bank accounts in a way that the prosecution would suggest positioned her to control all of them if Eric died. On the evening of his death, Kouri Richins reportedly gave Eric a drink mixture of vodka and ginger beer. This happened sometime around 9 p.m. Now, she told investigators that her 9-year-old son was having nightmares, so she left the bedroom and went to the child's room, slept with him until the early morning hours at about 3 a.m. When she climbed back into bed with Eric, she realized he was stiff and cold. She called 911. First responders were unable to save Eric, who was later pronounced dead. At first, they theorized that he might have had an aneurysm or something like that. But everything changed when the coroner ordered an autopsy, and they discovered that he was overdosed by, some people say, 5 times the limit needed to kill someone of fentanyl. Well, in the many months that followed Kouri's arrest, the defense has argued that Eric is a drug user, that he was using drugs and perhaps even abusing them, and that Kouri is only a fall guy. The prosecution continues to contend that she's a calculated killer who stopped at nothing to try to get the family's wealth, something they indicate she was prevented from doing in a prenuptial agreement. And this change of beneficiaries that happened just before Eric's death kind of reminds me of the Daybell case. Well, Greg Skordas, Eric's family attorney, said premarital agreements stipulated that Kouri gave up any claim to Eric's business assets unless he were to die, and he had to die during the marriage. Skordas said Eric was worth much more to her dead than alive. He believes that Kouri felt that there was easy money, fast money to be made by not having her husband around anymore. Now, on the flip side, the defense disputes the allegations, saying that Kouri forged Eric's signature. They dispute the fact that the prosecution says she mishandled finances and that she stole from Eric. And they deny the charges of the prosecution that Kouri was purchasing fentanyl from her house cleaning lady, and they indicate there's no evidence to support that, outside of the housekeeper that says it happened. They claim that because she's a criminal, she can't be trusted. Well, it's going to be interesting to see the state's case as they outline what they believe are points to murder. And that brings into play the last part of this mystery that I think is going to hold a lot of importance in this case. And that's this walk the dog letter and Kouri's mother. You see, in September of 2023, Kouri had a medical emergency while she was in custody in the Summit County Jail in Utah. She was in the hospital being taken care of, and correctional officers searched her jail cell, where they found a letter that the state believes is evidence of witness tampering. The letter, which is now known as the Walk the Dog letter, is a letter that prosecutors contend was handwritten by Kouri Richins to her mother. And in that letter, Richins suggests that her brother should testify in a certain way that would show Eric as a drug user. Now, Richins' mother, when asked by the press, couldn't explain the purpose of the letter, and she did a big interview on 48 Hours. Richins later told the media the letter was never intended to be mailed. It was merely a new book chapter that she was working on. And I find it really interesting that this new book chapter coincides with much of the defense she's already raised. Now, this one is going to be one to watch. And this brings me to the question that I have really had come up with me about Kouri Richins' mother, Lisa Darden. You see, in March of this year, 2024, NBC News released a story titled "Mom of Kouri Richins, Utah grief author, accused of poisoning husband, may have had a role in death." Well, the article points out that Darden, now this is Kouri Richins' mother, was actually at the Richins home just hours before Eric died, and that she has now been tied to another death, the death of a former romantic partner of hers who died in an oxycodone death years earlier. In that death, Kouri's mother benefited from life insurance policies of the former lover, and now law enforcement and the prosecution are wondering if she didn't just kind of suggest that might be a way to get some money. Darden hasn't been charged in that case, but it certainly makes for interesting consideration.
Tonight, new details revealing that police believe the Utah author, wife and mother accused of poisoning her husband in 2022 may have had help from her own mother. A newly unsealed search warrant affidavit shows Kouri Richins' mother, Lisa Darden, was at her daughter and son-in-law's house the night they celebrated a new business deal, just hours before Eric Richins was found dead in the home with 5 times the lethal dose of fentanyl. Darden speaking to CBS 48 Hours just a few weeks ago.
3 o'clock in the morning, I got a phone call, and it was Kouri, and she said, "Get up here, something's happened to Eric."
The affidavit also detailing conversations Darden had with her daughter about her disdain for Eric. The warrant included a search of Darden's phone records. After his death, Richins went on to write a grief book and speak about him on TV.
Just because he's not present here with us physically, that doesn't mean his presence isn't here with us.
But these new documents also revealing the mother's connection to another death. Investigators discovering Darden's romantic partner died unexpectedly from an oxycodone overdose in 2006. Further investigation showing Darden had been made a beneficiary of the woman's estate a short time before her death. The detective concluding that based on Lisa Darden's proximity to her partner's suspicious overdose death and her relationship to Kouri, it is possible she was involved in planning and orchestrating Eric's death.
Seeing that mom was with Kouri Richins the night of her husband's death, and seeing that we have 2 drug overdoses of partners, that can change things all these years later.
Darden has not been charged in either case and could not be reached for comment.
If Lisa Darden, mom, is charged as an accomplice or a party to the crime of Kouri Richins' husband's death, then I think it's fair to expect that prosecutors are going to file a motion with the court and say, look, we want evidence to come in of the prior death of her partner, even if she was never charged with it.
Kouri Richins' attorney slamming the allegation, saying the fact that Miss Darden's significant other was one of the millions that suffered from and ultimately succumbed to opioid addiction is hardly suspicious. It's tragic and unfortunately quite common. Going on to say the fact that Miss Darden was the beneficiary of her romantic partner's life insurance policy is also not unique. It only demonstrates that her circumstances are no different than most families in America.
Well, if these allegations are true, Utah has a law in place that could result in Darden also facing criminal charges. The law is called the Accomplice Liability Law. The Accomplice Liability Law is governed by Utah Criminal Code statute, and it says that a person can be held criminally liable for the actions of another person if they intentionally aid, advise, or encourage the commission of a crime. Now, under the code, a person is considered an accomplice if they intentionally aid or advise or encourage the person in a way that would facilitate the commission of an offense. But the accomplice has to perform an act that would really help this thing. Now, this could include providing physical assistance, advice, or other kinds of support that would help them successfully commit the crime. An accomplice can also be held liable for crimes they aid or encourage the perpetrator to commit. This means that if the principal offender were to commit additional crimes that are foreseeable consequences of an intended crime, for instance, witness tampering, desecration of a body, things like that, the accomplice could also be held liable for those additional crimes. Some examples of accomplice liability in a real simplistic way would be like the guy driving the getaway car in an armed robbery, or the person who provides tools or information for a crime and encourages the commission of a crime. And this includes verbally encouraging somebody to commit a crime. So somebody just saying, you should go kill that person, could potentially fall into this category. Now, the defense can argue that the person withdrew their participation beforehand, and they can hope that that would avoid liability, but the court has to be convinced that it happened. Now, the defense could also argue that the individual lacks the intent to really do something, but either way, this adds a really interesting twist to this criminal case. So now we wait for the preliminary hearing on the murder charges and, of course, the drug charges that are added on there. It's now been moved for August 26th to August 28th. Kouri Richins will be before a judge a few weeks earlier as well on one of the civil suits that she's facing in this case. So, folks, thanks for supporting Profiling Evil. I hope you'll put your comments down below about the Kouri Richins case and whether this is one you're going to be watching. You can find Profiling Evil on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. And please check out our audio podcasts on your favorite podcast platform. And if you'd like to donate to our efforts of Profiling Evil, you can do so easily at Profiling Evil's website, profilingevil.com. There, you can make a donation. There's a little donate button, or you can sign up for the BOLO. And make sure you're checking out our story maps and the new missing persons and unsolved murders crowdsource map we've created. I hope you'll consider updating it with cases from your own community. Hey, thanks again, and we'll see you soon at the next crime scene.